Many thanks for your time today, Leith. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and your organisation?
Yeah, you're welcome, Nick. So my current role, I work as Behaviour Consultant for Catholic Education WA. And that means I work with school psychologists, I work with school leadership teams and with school staff, just providing consultancy, support, planning, training based around based around behaviour consulting.
So what challenges were schools facing prior to coming to Team Teach?
So some of the challenges being faced in schools at the moment are where young people or a portion of young people don't necessarily have the skills to meet expectations in the schools. And in some cases, that's then reflective of behaviour. And we move from a teaching and learning environment to a challenging behaviour space and sometimes to a hazardous behaviour space. So I think in my role, I tend to be called in when there are challenging behaviour spaces that sometimes move to hazardous. And with that in mind, at times, part of that work does involve gathering all the staff together in a high needs support environment and then providing them access to a lens so that they can work as a team to support that young person. And that's where Team Teach is integral to that process.
Great. So why did you choose Team Teach?
Team Teach, it's an integrated solution that works very, very well in a school-based setting. I know clearly much of the practice is best practice. It's got links to existing evidence base, but primarily I look at it. It actually draws back to the human connection. I love the way that Team Teach begins with values. So the very, very first entry point for a school team is, what are our values? Because our values determine our thinking. So then the thinking, being in an education space, then there's that information within Team Teach that takes us through, the legal and guidance, through the documentation, through those matters, examining duty of care. It just provides that all-round solution for what schools need in a very holistic way.
What did you like about the approach of the training?
What I like about the approach of the training? I think the fact that it goes from global, in other words, it takes the entirety of the context. It then looks at each component then in a very specific way, but also in a very practical way. So the training gives us this opportunity to go global, but then also to be very, very specific, and then we can localize to our context around that specific. So therefore, the training is very flexible. I mean, global for all, but then down to specifics for context when we need it.
What would you say is the biggest impact Team Teach training has had on the schools you work with?
The biggest impact I see with Team Teach and the impact at the staff level, it enables the conversations for the teams to come together, particularly in spaces where people have all got the right heart and they've got the right intention, but they may be operating somewhat slightly differently. If I use a phrase, we want all of the adults to provide the support in a very predictable and reliable way with a common approach. And we can't speak to each individual and give them the same unit of information to hope it comes in that way. I mean, it provides the lens to bring everyone together in that same context, commonality of message, and really start to build that team culture. So it's a great training vehicle for building team culture.
What would you say to other organisations like yours looking at investing in using the Team Teach approach?
My advice to organisations would be to really look at how you want your team to function. Think about what their needs are and think about what's needed for that team to perform as well as it can.
Anything that we haven't mentioned that you'd like to mention?
I do. So Team Teach, I would advocate for Team Teach in that it puts the person in the middle of the process or in the middle of the context, and then it provides a lens so that the people that provide the support can have a look at all the practices that sit around, and that they can engage in those conversations and come up with agreed ways of working that are helpful for that young person, and can support that young person to where that young person really wants to be. No one wants to be in the middle of a storm. No one wants to be, with what others perceive to be dysfunction. And if we can help that person through the team helping that person, and it's a very valuable service I think an organisation can provide.
Right, perfect. Thank you, Leith.
All right, cheers, Nick. Thank you.